this on television. Why not? Because they're scared. Welcome to the March of Freedom.
It was really a stressful moment, and easily the hardest thing I had ever done before, but I know this has to be done. I feel it within my heart, and there is nothing in this world that can stop me. I told my family I love them, and that they will give me strength on the way, and my wife told me she believes in me. After I gave her a hug and walked away, I could not hold back the tears, and I did not look back. I am really going to miss my family, but I believe what I am doing is for the common good of all of humanity, and not just my family alone. It was almost 10 p.m. when I left, and I walked down the Trans-Canada Highway, making it to Coniston around midnight. There is no turning back now.
Well, there it is. No turning back now. Civilization and the highway. No turning back now. Just making it on the outskirts of Sudbury now.
Alone. Truly alone. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity. And it felt as though I were jumping right into the fire. When a person is confronted with fire, they have 3 decisions they can make. The first decision, and obviously the least chosen path, is to allow the scorching flames to devour your body until you are reduced to ashes. The second choice, and most often decided, is to get out of harm's way to avoid getting burned. For this particular fire, I was choosing the third path, and therefore I was standing my ground, attempting to battle the flames to extinguish the danger. As I continued walking down the Trans-Canada Highway, it did not take long for the burdens and discomforts of the journey to overwhelm my highly emotional state. I had just left my family, my friends, and my life behind me on the highway, and by the time I made it to Coniston, the weight of my backpack was starting to take its toll.
Well, walking down the highway here, I made it to Coniston. Didn't take too long, actually, considering the weight of the bag that I'm carrying. Probably weighs about 50 or 60 pounds, and I could feel the blood in my arms getting cut off. Lack of circulation because the straps of the bag are pretty tight. I'm gonna have to shed some weight on the backpack eventually, and eventually, with all hopes, I'll find another backpack along the way, like a hitchhiker bag or an outdoor bag, because this one here is just a sports bag. I picked it up right cheap, not cheap enough for a backpack anyways. Nothing's cheap these days, as we all know. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to figure something out about the backpack, because I can't walk across Eastern Canada with a backpack that's cutting circulation off from my arms. But yeah, there's Coniston. I actually I lived here for a while back in 2000, 2001. So here it is, the business center of Coniston, Coniston Mall. We've got the beer store, drug store right beside it. We got the Value Mart. We got a bank and an LCBO. So this is what the town needs: alcohol, drugs, and food. Oh yeah, and we can't forget about money, because everybody needs money, right? My grandfather died when I lived here, and it's actually also when the World Trade Centers went down, and that was probably the moment that I really started thinking about stuff and looking at the bigger picture. I mean, I wasn't totally clued in at that point, but the event definitely shocked me, and I wasn't sure what to believe back then. It was a long time ago. There we go, got some better lighting. I'm gonna take a break here in Coniston because that was a nice little 15k hike. About 15k, I don't know, I didn't count, but it was a long walk. And yeah, I'm gonna need to let my arms breathe a bit because, oh yeah, there we go. You can feel the blood in my arms again. Oh, but yeah, as I was saying, I lived here when the World Trade Center went down, and where I was working, this is a small little town. There's nothing here really. It's really hard to get a job here because there is such little, there's very little business around here. So I was working at a small call center at the time, and when the World Trade Center went down, I got sent home from work. There was a note on the door saying that there was no work because the financial market was down, and we weren't about to call people in America on a day like that. The boss that we had, her name was Lisa McDonald, actually. I was working for her for a while, and she owed me money. She owed a lot of people money there. She didn't pay me our checks, and she kept saying, yeah, your check's gonna come, don't worry about it. And I was living on my own at the time. I didn't have any roommates, or I didn't live with anybody, no family. So I needed that money to get by, to pay my rent. She kept telling us to go back to work all the time. She kept saying, yeah, don't worry, your check's coming in the next 2 weeks. And then when it didn't come, she'd say, oh, there's been an error, just come back to work and I'll get it sorted out. So I worked, and a lot of other people in the business actually worked about 4 weeks extra with no pay. So when we didn't get our pay, we show up at the work one time, and there's a note on the door saying that it's closed down. And I never heard from her since, actually. Some people went to the labor board, but she claimed bankruptcy, and there's all these legalities that she used to save her butt so she didn't have to pay her employees what we worked hard for. And that's the way our world is, really. Like, people work for nothing and they get ripped off all the time. And it's really sad, really, that happens.
Ever since I was young, I pretty much have despised the concept of money because I've lived firsthand and seen the division and inequality that it produces. I remember at a young age, my mom had to get food from the food bank because she couldn't afford to buy groceries. When she explained that we didn't have enough money to get by and survive, essentially that shocked me, and I was about 6 or 7 at the time. I was pretty young, but I actually soaked that in. At first when we went there a few times, I didn't really piece it together, I guess you could say, but when she explained it to me and why we were there, that really, I guess, shocked me and had an impact on me at a young age. That always seemed very unfair to me, that people could die essentially if they didn't have money to survive and they couldn't get by. I didn't stay in Coniston for too long, just enough time to take a rest and have a drink. I wanted to make as much distance as I could using the night air to cool my body temperature down.
It's about 11, a little bit after 11 o'clock, almost midnight. And I know a friend actually who lives around the second entrance of Coniston. I'm going to see if they're still there. Maybe they're not home, I don't know. I'm going to chance it and see what's going on, because if I know somebody along the way, I'll definitely say hello and stuff. But yeah, if they're not home, then I might have to tent it out for the night. I might just walk until the morning, I'm not sure yet. The first day here I got a lot of energy, enough energy anyways to go for a while. And it's always cooler at night, so I might walk at night. I might just walk all night and in the morning until I get tired. I got another friend who lives on this highway, Highway 17, Trans-Canada Highway. I have another friend who lives in Kukagami. I was definitely going to stop by his house too. Hopefully I can make it there while he's home and he's not at work, or something like that. But in any event, gotta keep trucking.
Because I had just started on the journey, I was making really good distance and timing, walking as quickly as I could in the dark to try and make it to the next town over, Wanapitei, which was about 5 kilometers away. Because of my computer being hacked and the overwhelming stress in the previous days leading up to my departure, I had not slept for a couple of days. The wee hours of a new day began, and as I walked I had plenty of time to think about the reasonings behind the March of Freedom. These consuming, in-depth thoughts passed the time rather quickly, and before long I had arrived in Wanapitei.
I've made it to Wanapitei. Didn't take too long from Coniston to get here. I'm at a Subway, which seems to be open 24 hours. This wasn't here when I lived around here, but it's cool that they got a 24-hour. But they don't have Wi-Fi. What's wrong with you, Subway? You make so much money off everyone, you can't offer them free internet service when they come and have a snack for $10? $10 sandwich? Come on. What's wrong with this picture? I just want to find a Wi-Fi connection so I could let people know where I'm at along the way, and post on my Facebook page and on the event page just to keep people up to date. It would be nice to get a Wi-Fi connection here, but sadly that's not the case. Way to go, Subway. Oh yeah, and look at the price of petrol. $1.39.5. Might be backwards for you guys because I got the camera reversed, but it's $1.39.5. That's the price of petrol. I'm glad I'm walking.
What we're seeing now is, with the economy and just the cost of living is absurd. The inflation rates are just through the roof. It's like $3-4 for a loaf of bread now. I remember when I was living in Coniston, rent was only about $450 or $500 at the most, and that was just 10 years before the March of Freedom when I lived there. Now when you look for a one-bedroom apartment, you're going to be paying anywhere between $800 and $1,200 for a one-bedroom apartment. You know, growing up, just realizing how thin that line is, and now seeing how many people are living in poverty, I am pretty much part of that percentage, and I know a lot of people are. A lot of people are going through that, and there's a lot of mothers out there and fathers who are single parents taking care of 1, 2, 3 children, however many they have, and that's very difficult, especially when you're living on a tight income with the cost of living nowadays. I rested in Wanapitei for about an hour and a half, not only because I needed to take the weight of the backpack off for an extended period of time, but also because I ran into a couple of friends at the gas station while I was resting. I hadn't seen them in years, so it was great to see a familiar face at such a late time, not to mention I was practically in the middle of nowhere.
In Wanapitei, and I ran into my buddy Justin. He used to come over all the time. We'd hang out and stuff out in Mark's Day in the bush. And yeah, I haven't seen this guy in years, and he just happens to stop by the Wanapitei 24-hour gas station that I just stopped at. I was sitting down taking a break because the backpack was weighing me down, and I just needed to take a rest there. And I thought I'd stop at the Subway, see if they had Wi-Fi, and what do you know, Justin shows up. It's cool to see you, man, for sure. Indeed. He thinks it's crazy what I'm doing, though. That's what he said. He said, that's crazy. But
that is crazy.
Yeah, that's what people will say, but as I said to you earlier, I think it's more crazy living in this world and not addressing the problems and doing something about it, so I'm just trying to do something about it, really. But yeah, it's
crazy.
It's really cool to see you, man, for sure, dude.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
After a lengthy discussion with Justin, I continued my walk down the Trans-Canada Highway. Despite not sleeping for days, I did not feel mentally or physically tired, so I wanted to use that momentum to get as far as I could without having to set up my tent and sleeping until sunrise or late morning. My plan was to try to make it to Kukagami, where a friend and bandmate lived, to stop in for a surprise visit. As I walked, I thought of what his reaction would be when I explained to him that I had just walked to his house from Sudbury. No one had ever done that before.
Wish you guys could see this. I don't have a good camera. I need to get something with better night vision for sure. I'll try to brighten this up or something in a video editing program, but it's so dark I can't see nothing. Like, I'm gonna do a 360 here. A couple lights way back there, but other than that, blackness, darkness. And I'm on the side of the Trans-Canada Highway, walking on the shoulder, and there's painted lines, and all I can see is a bright white line. I'm walking directly on it. I'm following the white line. Every time a car comes, I move over to the shoulder and walk on the shoulder of the road. But when there's no cars, I'm walking on the road because I get more distance that way. And the white line is like a road to follow. Cars coming, walking on the sidewalk. Here we go. Let's see if we can get some light. Not much. Well, I made it pretty far. I'm definitely outside of Wanapitei now. I don't know, I feel it's pretty good traveling at night because it's a lot cooler. And in the daytime, lately, the temperatures have been skyrocketing. So it's going to be a lot harder to walk in the day for sure and keep the distance up and keep going. But at night, it's a lot cooler for sure. You just got to watch out for a lot of things like bears and animals and such, because they like to cross the highway because it's less busy at night and there's less lights. But I noticed that it's garbage day on the highway, and the day I decided to leave, so I'm walking through the highway and there's all these garbage bags on the side of the road, and bears and raccoons and all animals love garbage. So that's one thing I'm watching out for. Is I've already heard some rustling in the bush a few times on my journey, but it's worth it. I'm not going to give up for nothing. Nothing can scare me. I believe that I'm at the mercy of nature, and I believe that nature has always protected me and it always will. So it's pretty cool that to be out here in the bush and just to be out in the alone walking down the highway at night, and there's no street lights where I am. It's like I'm gonna turn the camera. I'm sorry about the bad lighting on the video camera, but I don't have expensive equipment. I'm just using my iPhone, and it doesn't have night vision on it or anything for darkness. This is the best I can get. It is under a street light. I found one here. So I'm gonna show you around. As you can see, there's some mailboxes across the road. I'm in a little driveway that goes up a little side road off the highway. But yeah, there's a mailbox and there's a house off in the distance. You can barely see the lights, but other than that, it's pure darkness all up and down the highway. Like, you can see the light from where I am, but like, take a look around. Pure darkness. Up there's a couple lights. That's towards North Bay. That's towards Sudbury, where that car is coming from. And yeah, this is going to be one crazy journey. It already has been, and I'm imagining it's just going to get more awesome, more intense. So I got to keep trucking.
And it did get intense. As I was walking down the highway, I heard a car approaching from behind, so I moved onto the shoulder of the road. As the car got closer, I heard tires crunching the gravel behind me and had to veer sharply, almost going into the ditch. The car had went slightly off the road, and if I hadn't moved, I'm certain that I would have got hit. I wasn't sure if it was intentional, or perhaps he was drunk, or seeing someone walking on the highway may have startled the driver, but it was surely a close call. Because I had to turn sharply off the shoulder, and due to the lack of streetlights, I could not record the car as it continued up the highway, but it definitely startled me and sharpened my alertness instantaneously. The most important factor on the March of Freedom was definitely safety first. I really wanted to make it home back to my family safe and sound in one piece, not harmed or anything like that. So I always took into consideration safety first. I definitely saw in my mind that I would make it back home to my family, which really helped me along the way as I thought about them and just had them in my thoughts. That was very important overall.
So yeah, I arrived in Stinson. There's a bit of light here off the highway. I actually know a few people in Stinson, but it's pretty late. It's 3:30 in the morning actually, so I don't really want to stop by and say hello. I want to wake them up in case they're working or something like that. But I'm in Stinson, and I left my house at about 9:30 or so, and I got dropped off at a bit after that, and I started walking at 10 o'clock, and it's 3:30 in the morning right now. So I've been walking for 5.5 hours, and I'm in Stinson right now. I'm gonna keep going, but I wanted to wanted to show you guys something that's really inspiring that I found here in Stinson, and it just gave me a little bit of energy for sure. But on this mailbox here, and I'm not even joking, I showed up here and I found this little toad. Oh, it's a frog actually. Little frog sitting on the mailbox. I stopped under the light. I took a drink. I see this little tiny frog on the mailbox. You can see him sitting there. Now how did the little frog get up there? He's just a little baby. If the frog can make it up onto that mailbox, then I can walk across Canada. I know it's pretty impossible to see right now because of the camera I'm using for this, but I thought this was really important to catch. Like, we're still using electricity to power our homes, and I'm in the middle of nowhere right now. Actually, I'm right outside of Kukagami. I'm just entering Kukagami. Can you hear that? You can hear the bullfrogs in the background. All the frogs. Thought I read somewhere that they were extinct, but I've been hearing them all up the highway. Well, not extinct, but going extinct. On the endangered list. Probably just another ploy to make money. But also, listen. Can you hear the hydro wires? They're just buzzing. And we still fuel our homes with electricity. When we could be using much more efficient technology.
The constant buzz of electricity was a sign that I had arrived in Kukagami, which meant that I could finally take a rest, get off of my feet for a bit, and take the weight of the backpack off of my back. I had been walking all night, and I knew the sun would be rising in a couple of hours, so I was glad to be at a place that I was familiar with and could take a longer rest to re-energize. By the time I arrived in Kukagami, my feet felt like they were on fire. The weight of the backpack with all of my supplies, food, and equipment was weighing me down with every step that I took. It felt like I weighed a ton, and by that time I had a slight limp due to the strain and the pain. This was definitely going to be one long, hard trek across eastern Canada, and this was only the first night of the journey.
So it's 4:30 in the morning, and I arrived in Kukagami, and I'm at my buddy Justin's house. He's the guitarist in the first band that I toured with called Fleshcraft, and he doesn't even know I'm here. I didn't tell him I was coming here or anything like that, but I want to surprise him. It's 4:30 in the morning, so I don't know if I wake him up. He might get a little angry and answer the door with a shotgun. I don't know really, but in any event, I'll see you soon, Justin.
Since it was still quite early in the morning, and I knew Justin would still be asleep, I decided to set up my tent in his front yard and try to get a couple of hours sleep before knocking on his door. The sun was starting to come up by the time I got the tent set up, and I got eaten alive by mosquitoes in the process. I also discovered that there was absolutely no way that I was getting any sleep, yet again.
Well, first night out in the tent, first night walking, what a night that was. It was definitely interesting to be alone with nature in the middle of the night, with nothing around except the sound of nightlife, nature's nightlife, and I don't know, it was definitely a long walk from Sudbury to Kukagami for sure. I left at 10, got here at 4:30 in the morning. So, and I did take a few breaks, as you know, from the videos that I took, and I met Justin Kassonge and my buddy Jason there, with Fuchi. We met them at Wanapate. They stopped in and to get gas because there's a 24-hour place there. Feels good to get off my feet and rest finally. Except I can't really sleep. There's so much going on in my head and so much to think about and so much plans that I have that I want to do on this journey. So it's a good time to be alone and to think about what's going on and the reasons why I'm doing this. Because many people may not understand why, but I do, and I'm sure millions of others do too. So it's time to wake up, people, for sure. This is where I'm sleeping. This is my tent. It's a small kid's tent, actually. It was the smallest one I could find, and it fit me. I did the dimensions, I checked it out, and I fit like toe to toe, end to end. I don't know if I'm gonna lay down, my toes are gonna touch the other end of the tent there. But yeah, see, here we go. So there's not too much room. Not too much room there. But it's perfect. Keeps the mosquitoes out, and super comfortable. I'm running low on fluids, but I'm tenting in my buddy Justin's front yard right now. Actually, he's still sleeping, but I'm gonna wake him up really soon. So I'll get a video of his reaction. Still some mosquitoes in here, sucking my blood. But yeah, there's daylight now, so that's a good thing, because now people can actually see the video. I'm using an iPhone, and it's a bad phone for filming this kind of stuff, especially at night. It has no night capabilities whatsoever. So it's already dark, the night shots, so it's hard to see. But yeah, this is my new home for the time being. Until I complete my mission. And just wanted to say, Ottawa, I'm coming. If I walk all the way to Ottawa and I can't talk to our Prime Minister of our country, there's going to be some problems. And I'm not talking violence or anything like that, but people are going to know what's going on. So just wanted to say that. Alright, so it's 6:30 in the morning, and I'm going to go see if Justin's awake. Can't sleep in my tent there, so I'm going to go see if Justin's here. I want to try to hit the highway before it gets too hot in the mid-afternoon. So it's nice and early for that. So here we go. Let's see what he says. No doorbell. Gotta knock again. Must be sleeping good, or they can't hear it.
After knocking a few times and getting no answer, I decided to try the front door to see if I'd have better luck.
Justin. Yo, I walked here from Sudbury.
Come and go if you have the door, I'll let you in, start shitting away.
Alright.
Yeah.
I thought you weren't home or something. Well, Justin woke him up there. Cool stuff. This will be awesome. I haven't seen him. Well, I've seen him not too long ago, but it's not too often I get to go out here because it's so far away from Sudbury. So. Dude, sorry for waking you up. I was like, I don't know, man. Is 6:30 too early?
Justin was up just a few hours prior, so he was obviously pretty tired, but he put on a pot of coffee, and it wasn't long until we began discussing free energy, transhumanism, and obviously, the March of Freedom.
Yeah, just pretty stressed out, or?
Yeah, Shen's, yeah. She's stressed out.
Yeah, so just watching the dog,
No, I'm lucky I have Shannon, you know what I mean? I'm lucky that I have her, because if it wasn't for her, I'd be in a big mess, for sure.
But she's supporting you through all this stuff, or is she pretty livid about it?
Well, that's the thing. No, she totally understands why I'm doing it, and she does support it, but she's concerned about the kids and all that.
Yeah, but at a time when now she needs to find a job, it must be...
Yeah. And that's why I did what I did, because there's a lot of families going through this, you know what I mean? I watch documentaries, I watch the news, and I see kids starving to death. Parents have 2 children and they die because they don't eat. They have no money whatsoever, you know what I mean? We're not that bad. Like, she has family that are gonna help. That's a great thing, you know what I mean? Her family's gonna help. You have friends too back home that are gonna help. Like, that's a major help for sure. So that's why I was comfortable with it. I mean, if we were alone and we didn't have any family around or friends or anything like that, then I would have done it. But I know that, like I was saying earlier, you know what I mean? People do have love in their hearts, man. People do care about other people.
Oh, the kids pretty,
Oh, they're doing good.
they know what's going on, they really know what's going on.
Well, we didn't tell them. Shannon didn't want to tell the kids, actually. She wanted to keep it from them and tell them that I was going on a music tour. And she did tell them that I'm going on tour, and I told them that. I told them I'm going on tour, but it's a different kind of tour, that's what we said. So they're young, you know what I mean? But they know about the government, you know what I mean? They know about it. Sorts of stuff, man. It's crazy what they know.
When I'm sleeping, he takes my coins. The coins, he gets to go in my dungeon.
The government takes your coins.
And he goes in my dungeon.
We teach them like how to grow our own food. We got a garden growing, you know what I mean? So we teach them how to grow food. We teach them to be sustainable, to take care of yourself and not depend on the system. Yeah, they know a lot for being young. And I don't know, my daughter totally is gonna miss me. She told me that she doesn't want me to go long. She wants me to go for only 1 day. And yeah. My son though, he's like, you go get those government bad guys.
You say that?
Oh yeah, man, I got it on video and everything. I'm gonna be putting that in the show. But yeah, man, it's definitely gotta be done what I'm doing. But yeah, this is my setup here at Justin's place. Little tent right in front of his house. I stuck it right under his window so that and tucked close to the house so that he wouldn't see it if he looked out the window, so I could surprise him in the morning. I hope you don't mind I woke you up.
I don't know yet, man.
I was like, I don't know. If I didn't wake you up, I think you'd be like upset that I didn't stop and say hi. You know?
I guess if I saw the video that you were like camping out in my yard and then you were gone, I'd be like, hey, man.
Yeah. You stole my
Why did you
Wi-Fi.
knock on my window?
Yeah. You stole my Wi-Fi. And
You stole
used
my
my lawn.
Wi-Fi, yeah. You're only using me for my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It was good to be with a friend, especially someone I knew well and had known for a long time. We talked for a while and discussed finishing an album that had been in the works for a decade.
Since 2001, 2000 we've been jamming. Like that's when we started. Pretty much. Good times. Indeed. Fleshcraft was awesome. Still is.
Yeah,
Indeed.
New stuff's gonna be pretty cool. People hear,
They will. They'll hear it.
especially the new stuff that they're not even gonna hear on this album. But you've heard some of the newest stuff.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
It's a lot
Definitely.
different. Well, it's not a lot different, but it's just, I think it'll be a lot different vocally.
Yeah, man. It will be good.
I didn't stay at Justin's too long, and by around 8:30 I left to continue the journey, so I could utilize as much of the cool morning air as possible. The afternoons were seeing temperatures in the high 30s and 40s, and I did not want to get heat stroke walking on the shoulder of the Trans-Canada Highway.
Right on, man.
Yeah, well,
Good seeing you, though.
Good luck.
Indeed.
Thanks
for everything.
I'll keep updated there.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the banana. Growing in Kukagami.
Yeah, Kukagami grown wild banana.
I left with my banana from Kukagami, and Justin also gave me a couple water bottles. It was time to hit the highway again, and I felt refreshed mentally from the visit with Justin. I also had the daylight to look forward to, which would provide much better highway visibility and filming conditions.
This is why I love Northern Ontario. Lots of bush. All around. Lots of bush, but not only that, but if you go over here, what's on the ground? Oh, color. Food. Some decent berries. Blueberries. Wild blueberries. Free food. Nature's gift to me and everyone. Instead of eating genetically modified foods, we should be eating stuff that doesn't cost us anything, gives us energy, healthy for you, no chemicals, no additives, therefore no health effects. You're not going to get sick from eating this. It's perfect food, and it's everywhere. It's abundant. It's awesome. I always take my kids out to pick some berries, and they're learning now to forage, to be able to find stuff to eat. And it's really good to know plant identification so that you can know which plants are good and which plants are not good. And blueberries are definitely good, and they're quite expensive actually. Cost quite a bit if you want to buy them. Well, just had a blueberry snack, free nature's food. Feel a lot better now. Got some energy in me. So I'm gonna hit the highway. I just wanted to show you guys the view up here though. It's awesome. I'm on top of a mountain. Not a mountain, but a pretty big hill, a big rock. And yeah, Northern Ontario, especially Sudbury area, was hit by a couple meters. It's one of the only places on Earth that was hit by several meters, and or more than one. And there's a lot of ley lines that cross in Sudbury, which is really cool. There's a lot of energy there. And if you guys are aware of Sudbury, it's got the big nickel. They mine a lot of nickel from there. And in the wars, actually, they were making bullets for the military to kill people with the nickel they were mining. I could think of about 1 million better uses for that nickel, let me tell you. But the meteors that hit deposited nickel and all sorts of good stuff that we could use if companies and corporations were exploiting it. And in Sudbury, we have Vale. It used to be Inco, but was bought out by Vale. And everybody knows about Vale, I'm sure. Not only in Canada, but around the world. So just another thing to address.
The clouds were getting darker above me as I made it back onto the largest highway in the second largest country in the world. I was in a fairly desolate area at this part of the journey, and I was hoping to be able to make it as far as possible. The stretch of highway between Kukagami and the next town up was about 20 kilometers, and I had already been on the road for around 12 hours, taking minimal breaks along the way. The rest at Justin's was good, however it did not take long for the burning in my feet and legs to come back to haunt me. This was definitely a workout, and it was a significant test to see how far I could make it on a minimal food and fluid supply. Considering there was definitely a storm brewing in the air, I tried to walk as quickly as possible, but I was quite tired from the lack of sleep, food, water, and the many kilometers I had just walked. It was going to be a long day, that's for sure.
Awesome. Just found something really cool. I can't zoom right now for some reason, but if you look at the bridge over there, underneath it's a beaver dam. Nature's bridge, man's bridge. Well, I've almost reached Marks Day, which is where I graduated from my programming, aka school. I lived there actually for a while. And yeah, very close. It's just over that bridge down there. But I did notice something on the highway, which is pretty cool, because I didn't know if these grew around here, but we've got, looks like chamomile. I was growing some of this at home actually. There's some plants at my house. Same plants, totally. These are, the bottoms of them are kind of grimy, but the top is good. I don't see any garbage or oil spills near it or anything like that, so it should be pretty safe to eat. So I'm gonna eat a little bit of it. Chamomile is pretty good, it's healthy for you anyway, so that's the main thing. And it's all natural, just like the blueberries. Gotta eat what you can, right? Yeah, here we go. Chamomile flowers. You can tell because of the leaves and the flowers. And it's the flowers that I'm gonna want to eat. Just gotta make sure there's no bugs on these before before I eat them. You don't want to eat a bug. Oh, you can. I mean, they're good for you and all that, but this one looks pretty good. So, bon appetit.
When I left on the March of Freedom, I hadn't slept in a couple days prior to that, and I had no expectations. I mean, I didn't plan anything. I didn't talk to anybody beforehand or set anything up when I left. I just left. I didn't tell anybody. I posted the video and I left. I wasn't sure what to expect on the road, and I definitely have always lived in a kind of struggle, I guess you could say. From being homeless and being on my own at such a young age, that kind of conditioned my body, I guess you could say, to get used to going without, to be able to push the limit, to go 100%. That's one of the main things, was to test the threshold of tolerance, essentially. I knew my limits, but I also knew that they were much farther than what I've actually done. So that's kind of what gave me almost inspiration and belief that I could complete this journey and do what I did. Mind you, I'm no survivor man or anything like that. I didn't take any training or any courses. I mean, I'm not highly educated in survival tactics or anything like that. I mean, I know the basics and stuff like that, but I wasn't trained or anything. However, just having the belief and the courage and just living through a life with so much struggle, I guess that made me strong and prepared for this journey.
Well, made it just outside of Marks Day now. Next stop is Hager. 10 kilometers. And after that, it's North Bay. 88 kilometers. We're gonna try to stop by the Sturgeon Falls on the way. That's in between Hager and North Bay. That might be where I rest, because this is it's 11:11 right now. And I left last night at 10, and actually the night before I slept only a couple hours. In the last 4 days I've slept 5 hours, and I walked from Sudbury here, and I'm definitely getting pretty tired out for sure. My legs are sore. I can already feel blisters on my feet, but the blisters are going to turn to callus, and they'll turn to stone after that. I got strength for sure. I know people are giving me good energies all around the world. I've already got lots of messages from people. Lots of messages showing support, which is awesome. That's what this is going to take for sure. Definitely a lot of support and a lot of unity. We got to work together on this, right? That's what I'm going for. So yeah, there's Hager, North Bay. This is where I used to live. Back in, I moved here in 1997, and I lived here for 3 years, till 2000. I lived here with my ex-girlfriend and her mother, Teresa, and her brother, Johnny. And the reason why I moved here up to Northern Ontario is because I was homeless in Kitchener for a while. And I had nowhere to go, no money, no family to help me out, nothing. And she said that her older brother moved out, and that there was a room in the trailer that I could move in if I wanted to. When she offered me a room, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take that for sure. And then I got back in school after the summer was done, and that's how I ended up in Northern Ontario. So yeah, I'm across the road from the trailer park I used to live in. Have to take a break though for a little bit. My feet are getting pretty sore from walking for so long. Usually when I take a stop, I take a drink and let my feet rest for a couple minutes, but I think I'm gonna have to take a longer break on this one. My feet are getting pretty sore.
Before leaving on the March of Freedom, I didn't have a lot of money to buy any equipment or to buy good boots, so I left with the shoes that I had. I just left with whatever I could scrounge up at home to save some money, and then I left. So I definitely wasn't exactly prepared, I guess you could say, for a long journey, but at the same time I knew I could survive with what I did have. When I got to Mark's Day, I definitely had to rest the feet because they were really starting to get sore. The backpack was weighing me down, carrying all those supplies for as far as I walked, and walking 10 kilometers felt like I walked about 50 kilometers. Just getting that last 10 kilometers from Mark's Day to Hager definitely felt like I walked about 30 kilometers. I slowed down a lot. I was definitely starting to slow down. I barely had any water left. I had to start conserving the water as I was walking, and my body was sweating lots because of carrying the bag, and I was losing lots of body water. So I had to keep hydrated and keep drinking water. But when you're running low and there's no store in sight for miles, it's definitely a tough time, you know, and I was definitely feeling it at that point.
I think there's about 8 kilometers maybe to Hager, so it's not too bad. It's just over that hill and down a hill and then around a bend by the Vev River. There's actually a little camping spot down there where you can tent out overnight, but it's I don't even think it's noon right now, so I won't be staying there, but it's cool that they have those set up along the road where you can camp out. It doesn't cost you anything. A lot of campgrounds charge money, but really you could just camp out on Crown land. The Crown land is exactly what it is. It's Crown land. It's land that was taken by the Crown from the native peoples in Canada anyways. It was taken by the Crown, and they still call it Crown land. And I believe squatters' rights are you're allowed to stay on Crown land for 30 days, and then you have to get off it. They'll evict you or arrest you if you don't leave, and then you have to wait another 30 days before you're allowed back on Crown land, and then you have another 30 days. At least that's what I was told by somebody who was doing that for a little while. And it's pretty crazy that it's still called Crown land. I think it should be called native land.
Last night in Montreal, there was a small but noisy protest by people who believe the British royal family should not have a special position in Canada. It was a counterpoint, but not an interruption.
The Queen's on the Canadian bills. The Queen's on our coins, on the back of every coin. And people in Canada still think that we're not ruled by a monarchy or a royalty. Royalties goes back for centuries. Look it up the bloodlines and all that stuff. It goes back for a long time. And even in the year 2013, we're still calling it Crown land, and it just doesn't make sense to me, really. And all around Canada right now, you see the native peoples protesting the fracking and protesting the gluttony of resources by the government, by corporations, and by the Crown. You got people that are right rude about this. They're like, oh yeah, well, that's in the past. You know what I mean? You gotta let it go. No, you don't. You gotta address the problems and you gotta fix them. Because if you don't fix them, they're just gonna get worse. And that's the problem, for sure. Nobody's fixing the problems. They just let it go. It's like we live our lives each day, and apathy runs through most of our veins. I've tried to get it out of me, and I think I have done a successful job. But the truth is, a lot of people are technically what you would call insane. Because when you watch somebody being murdered, or you watch a certain race or anything be suppressed and murdered, or you just look around at what's happening in the world, people do nothing about it. They just go about their days not concerned about what's going on. And when they do address the problems, they address the effects. And therefore the cause is still there. And we gotta stop dealing with the effects of the problems, and we gotta start dealing with the causes of the problems. And that's what's gonna take, for sure. I hope that the Prime Minister of our country will at least give me 5 minutes of time to speak to him on video and let me do the talking. Give me 5 minutes of your time, Stephen Harper, Mr. Prime Minister. Give me 5 minutes of your time on video so the world can see the questions that I have for you. And if your answers are going to be long and take up to 5 minutes of time, then just let me do the talking and let me address your issues, and then you can have as long as you want to answer the questions that I have for you and to address the issues that I explained to you. If I walk from Sudbury to Ottawa and you don't give me 5 minutes of your time, then you, sir, are a coward. And that's all I have to say about that.
After resting in Mark's Day for about 10-15 minutes or so, I started walking again down the highway, and as I was walking, a car pulled over to the side of the road, and I wanted to see who it was, obviously, and a couple friends came out, and they started calling my name and running over to me, and it was actually my friends Cassandra and Kevin Henderson and their uncle. When they saw me, they came running out and said that they read on Facebook that I left on this journey and I was doing this, and they seemed supportive for sure of what I was doing. They gave me a juice bottle, which I definitely needed at that point in time because I was running low on water, and it definitely refreshed me. It had electrolytes in it and stuff like that, so it really did help. And they also gave me some sausages, like some pepperettes, and their uncle gave me $5 as well. He was on a pension check, but he still gave me $5. He said it's all he could do, but he said I was doing a noble thing and he wanted to help out. So that was really awesome to see them on the highway. It definitely gave me a boost of energy to try to help me get to Hager.
Beautiful. Beautiful view. Dangers of the road. Well, I'll tell ya. If you hear the sound of my feet, I'm slowing down. My legs are done. Definitely. I was hoping to make it to Sturgeon Falls today, but I don't know. I might just end up making it to Hager, but we'll have to see. I mean, I'm gonna keep on trucking on if I can, for sure, but everyone's gotta rest at some point. And I didn't sleep last night in the tent. Too much stuff on my mind. So yeah, I'm gonna have to take a rest or something. I've been taking long breaks today for the last couple hours for sure. Like before I would take maybe a couple of minutes here and there every few miles or so, but now I got to take a rest like more often for sure, and longer, because my knees and my ankles are done, because my backpack weighs so much, it's weighing me down to the ground. Every step I take feels like I'm taking a step for my whole body on one leg, which I am, but it's a lot of extra weight. I bet you my backpack weighs about 40 to 50 pounds, I'm guessing, easily. So yeah, that's the ropes right there. Definitely I'm gonna have to shed some weight on this bag if I'm gonna want to make some distances in good timing, because I'm slowing down for sure. Time to rest. Also, I got a bit less than a liter of water left. I don't know if you could see that, but I'm definitely running low. So I gotta hit Hager and fuel up at the store. Get some liquids in me. And Hager is still quite a ways to go. A couple kilometers maybe. I'll keep you up to date. Not too much left. So I gotta drink it sparingly. time. And when the World Trade Center went down, I got sent home from work. There was a note on the door saying that there was no work because the financial market was down, and we weren't about to call people in America on a day like that. The boss that we had, her name was Lisa McDonald, actually. I was working for her for a while, and she owed me money. She owed a lot of people money there. She didn't pay me our checks, and she kept saying, yeah, your check's gonna come, don't worry about it. And I was living on my own at the time. I didn't have any roommates, or I didn't live with anybody, no family. So I needed that money to get by, to pay my rent. She kept telling us to go back to work all the time. She kept saying, yeah, don't worry, your check's coming in the next 2 weeks. And then when it didn't come, she'd say, oh, there's been an error, just come back to work and I'll get it sorted out. So I worked, and a lot of other people in the business actually worked about 4 weeks extra with no pay. So when we didn't get our pay, we show up at the work one time, and there's a note on the door saying that it's closed down. And I never heard from her since, actually. Some people went to the labor board, but she claimed bankruptcy, and there's all these legalities that she used to save her butt so she didn't have to pay her employees what we worked hard for. And that's the way our world is, really. Like, people work for nothing and they get ripped off all the time. And it's really sad, really, that happens.
Ever since I was young, I pretty much have despised the concept of money because I've lived firsthand and seen the division and inequality that it produces. I remember
We got a bank and an LCBO. So this is what the town needs: alcohol, drugs, and food. Oh yeah, and we can't forget about money, because everybody needs money, right? My grandfather died when I lived here, and it's actually also when the World Trade Centers went down, and that was probably the moment that I really started thinking about stuff and looking at the bigger picture. I mean, I wasn't totally clued in at that point, but the event definitely shocked me, and I wasn't sure what to believe back then. It was a long time ago. There we go, got some better lighting. I'm gonna take a break here in Coniston because that was a nice little 15K hike. About 15K, I don't know, I didn't count, but it was a long walk. And yeah, I'm gonna need to let my arms breathe a bit because, oh yeah, there we go. You can feel the blood in my arms again. Oh, but yeah, as I was saying, I lived here when the World Trade Center went down, and where I was working, this is a small little town. There's nothing here really. It's really hard to get a job here because there is such little, there's very little business around here. So I was working at a small call center at the time.
They won't show you this on television. Why not? Because they're scared. Welcome to the March of Freedom.
It was really a stressful moment, and easily the hardest thing I had ever done before, but I know this has to be done. I feel it within my heart, and there is nothing in this world that can stop me. I told my family I love them, and that they will give me strength on the way, and my wife told me she believes in me. After I gave her a hug and walked away, I could not hold back the tears, and I did not look back. I am really going to miss my family, but I believe what I am doing is for the common good of all of humanity, and not just my family alone. It was almost 10 p.m. when I left, and I walked down the Trans-Canada Highway, making it to Coniston around midnight. There is no turning back now.
Well, there it is. No turning back now. Civilization and the highway. No turning back now. Just making it on the outskirts of Sudbury now.
Alone. Truly alone, for the first time in what seemed like an eternity, and it felt as though I were jumping right into the fire. When a person is confronted with fire, they have 3 decisions they can make. The first decision, and obviously the least chosen path, is to allow the scorching flames to devour your body until you are reduced to ashes. The second choice, and most often decided, is to get out of harm's way to avoid getting burned. For this particular fire, I was choosing the third path, and therefore I was standing my ground, attempting to battle the flames to extinguish the danger. As I continued walking down the Trans-Canada Highway, it did not take long for the burdens and discomforts of the journey to overwhelm my highly emotional state. I had just left my family, my friends, and my life behind me on the highway, and by the time I made it to Coniston, the weight of my backpack was starting to take its toll.
Well, walking down the highway here. I made it to Coniston. Didn't take too long actually. Considering the weight of the bag that I'm carrying, probably weighs about 50 or 60 pounds. And I could feel the blood in my arms getting cut off. Lack of circulation because the straps of the bag are pretty tight. I'm gonna have to shed some weight on the backpack eventually. And eventually, with all hopes, I'll find another backpack along the way, like a hitchhiker bag or an outdoor bag, because this one here is just a sports bag. I picked it up right cheap, not cheap enough for a backpack anyways. Nothing's cheap these days, as we all know. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to figure something out about the backpack, because I can't walk across Eastern Canada with a backpack that's cutting circulation off from my arms. But yeah, here's Coniston. I actually I lived here for a while back in 2000, 2001. So here it is, the business center of Coniston, Coniston Mall. We've got the beer store, drug store right beside it. We got the Value Mart.